Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace, mercy, and blessings of God, the Creator, be upon everyone. This talk that I'll be giving today will be about the strife that we are facing in America today. Coming from Masjid William Salam, I feel this is something that we need to discuss. To my Africans who are in America, and that's what we are, Africans in America, I salute you all. To those who are our advocates, those who are allies, those who are helping us, aiding us in this fight, I salute you. This is a jihad. You know, you hear Muslims talking about jihad, people talking about jihad. This is a struggle for justice, a struggle for righteousness. We are fighting against police brutality, injustice, no justice, lack of justice, half justice, police brutality, white supremacy, racism. All of these is a jihad. This is what we are fighting for justice and equality, for peace for everyone. Therefore, everyone who is fighting in it with us is a mujahideen. They are those who are fighting this jihad. We are in this struggle. There are 3 levels of jihad. You fight evil, and this is what it is. You fight evil with your hand, meaning you stop it with action. You speak out against it, or you hate it in your heart. And the hate in your heart is the weakest form of faith. Assalamu alaikum. Peace to everybody who is in attendance and people who may see it in the future. Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz said, "No one can give you freedom. No one can give you justice. No one can give you equality. No one can give you rights. If you are a man, if you are a woman, you take it. We have to put things into our own hands and fight for what is right." Now, there are people who are talking about the riots, the looting. Before I say anything about it, the Attorney General, William Barr, said that far left extremist groups are starting the riots and the violence and the looting. On social media, which has been a great catalyst for truth, we have been shown this repeatedly, and then the news cycle falls in line. We see people who are not in the movement attempting to sabotage it. So before I say anything, the Attorney General said that there are white supremacist groups, there are racist groups who are starting the rioting and the looting. So I don't want to hear anyone say anything unless they say white supremacists started this. I don't want to hear anyone say anything about it unless that's the case. Not to say that what I say matters, but I don't believe you are sincere unless you tell the truth. All right? I have been in these marches. They are peaceful marches. We are trying to peacefully resolve these situations. Right? But looting and rioting are a reaction. You know what reaction means? That there was an action that started it. It is an effect, meaning it was caused by something. So also, I don't want to hear anybody saying anything about riot and looting unless they say what caused this. That was the man killing Greg Floyd, strangling him. for 9 minutes. So I don't want to hear nobody say anything about anything. And there's a prerequisite. You got to say that. You got to say white supremacists started and the white supremacists who killed a man started it before you say anything about rioting and looting. Now, I am a Muslim. I'm a man of God. I cannot condone people transgressing bounds, killing people, harming people who didn't do anything wrong. It's against my religion totally and completely. I cannot condone it, but I understand. Every freedom fighter who's ever fought for freedom in this last century has spoken up about the Palestinians who have been facing oppression for about 100 years, right? And they have been doing acts that I can't condone, but I understand. If there's a battered woman who's been battered by her husband for 40 years, and she wakes up and kills him while he's asleep, I don't condone it, but I understand it. If there is a child who's being molested by someone else for 4 years, for 40 years, for 44 years, 14 years, 14 minutes, and he kills the person who molested him, I don't condone it, but I understand it. So what about if it's 400 years? Do you understand it when we're upset and act out? What about when it's 400 years in this country that we have been oppressed? When it's 1,000 years before that when the Arabs made us slaves? 1,000 years, and then 400 more years. And the British, the Dutch, the French, the Spaniards, the Portuguese carved up African land and colonized it and said, this part is mine, when no one in the continent looked like them. They flew there and carved up the place and made people slaves. And today we are still being exploited in this continent of Africa by the Chinese. Do you understand it then? Do you understand when 2 years ago Colin Kaepernick kneeled saying he's going to fight police brutality? And then they said that's out of bounds. That is disrespectful to our flag. What about killing us? Is that disrespectful to us? When you take away, Martin Luther King said riots are the voice of the unheard, or the vocabulary or the language of the unheard. When you take away a person's right to protest peacefully, you are leaving them no other alternative. And before you say, how did this happen? You have to say, why did this happen? Now, I've been in marches, and I would say 25 to 30% of the people that are in the marches are non-black people. And I thank you, I salute you for this. This is very important. In Malcolm X's movie, in his book, he talks about he was coming from a university and he was speaking, and a white lady came to him and she said, I understand the racism that you are facing. I understand your oppression, and I'm not a racist. What can I do to help? And in the movie, there's a scene where he just looks at her and says, nothing, and then walks away. But what is not articulated in that is that Malcolm X said from his own lips that was one of the most regretful moments in his life, because there is something that she could do. There is something that people who are non-African American can do to help, and they are doing it. I believe African Americans must be the leaders in this. We have to express our frustrations, our grievances with this country, and other people can help us, can aid us, but we must be the catalyst. We must be the leaders. We must be the voice that's speaking loudest about these things. I see in Berlin, I think they have it in Italy and Iran, people who are standing up in other countries, non-African countries, in our defense. In Germany, 100 years ago, they were putting Jewish people in concentration camps. Now they have the ability to turn and look at America and say you are doing your African American people wrong, which they were doing wrong even at that moment, that point in time. So now the tides have turned. Everyone is looking at America. You know, before Malcolm X was killed, he tried to get the UN to bring a case against the United States of America for taking our civil liberties. So again, let me not get off the subject. White people, non-African people can help. They can police those people who look like them, who are supporting white supremacy. You know, I did an unofficial poll of everyone that I know who are white. Not everyone that I know, everyone who I felt was sincere. I asked them, what percentage of white people do you think are racist? Of everyone I asked, there was no percentage less than 65%, which means they know that they are amongst their family members, their friends, the people that they work with, whomever, are racist. One person told me 100%. Now, this could be hyperbole or reality. Hyperbole and reality are somewhere within there. But the lowest number was 65%, which means that they know. You've seen the professor, I think her name is Jane, I can't remember her last name, who was giving a talk at a conference or an auditorium, and she asked a room full of white people, raise your hand if you want to be treated like African Americans are. And not one of them raised their hand, which means they know. So the help that you can give is by policing those people who won't come out openly and say that they have a disdain for black people, or they'll do such and such to black people. Kwame Ture, the man, I have his shirt right here. My brother Abdul sells these shirts, African Strength. Please support a black business. Kwame Ture. So I've been doing a lot of studying on organizing and revolution. Kwame Ture said in one of his talks, he said, I never needed an amendment for someone to convince me that I was 100% a human being. I didn't need an amendment to say I was more than 3/5 of a human being. I didn't need an amendment to say that I could vote. I didn't need an amendment to say that I could eat at a restaurant or drink at a water fountain with a white person. He said racist white people needed it. They needed an amendment. They needed a law to say, treat these people right. These people are equal to you. I never needed it. So what you can do is police the people who look like you, who are racist, people who are holding black people back, people who might strangle us to death. Because when you do that, then you stop this reaction of protesting, of rioting, of violence of any kind. So in researching Kwame Ture, I was listening to him. He's talking about galvanizing. We are all galvanized at this point. Anyone who is against injustice, galvanized, and we are mobilized in every state throughout the country. But my concern is, are we organized? Kwame Ture also talked about the Million Man March. You know, Louis Farrakhan did a Million Man March, a Million and More March, a Million Family March. And he said after each march, the next year he asked people, what are you doing now? They said, well, I was at the march, but what are you doing now? And while I was in this march, this is what I was thinking. And for everyone who is listening, or anybody who can articulate this to anybody in leadership, we have to organize. We always talk about the difference between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, thinking that it is just nonviolence and self-defense. I will use violence to defend myself. But an even more important one, at least in my view at this point, is the difference between mobilizing and organizing. Martin Luther King was a part of an organization, but he was more of a mobilizer. When someone was mistreated or their rights were violated, he would go to that state and protest and then get them their rights and then go to the next state and do the same thing. What Malcolm X did everywhere he went, after he left a temple. So there was organization. They had an agenda, they had a method to follow, they had a goal, and all of them, after he left in every state, every city, They would follow the commandment of what he had to say, what Elijah Muhammad had to say. So there was a common goal. There was a common path. So there was more than just uprising, upsetness, and then you leave. So we have to have an organization. The pivotal moment for me while I was in the march on Friday was we were marching for maybe 20, 30 minutes. And then we paused and everyone was able to kind of articulate their anger. And people were getting booed, people were getting cheered, but they were able to express themselves and the feelings that they were having about this brutality that we are experiencing in this world or in this country. And at one point, I was getting close. I wanted to say a little something. And then a brother from the far left started over talking the people with the megaphones. And he was more of a revolutionist. He was saying we need to fight we need to die for our rights. We need to be ready to die for our rights. We need to stop being afraid and stop talking and do something. Now he's overtaking what everyone else is saying. This causes an uproar and 2 and 3 and 4 people are having their own discussion instead of listening to what is being said. So at that point, I realized that there's something that is missing. But what we did ultimately, and I want to make sure this is clear, is that after the dispute was over, they said, let's keep marching. And then they marched on. So it was a disruption in terms of everyone trying to articulate what they wanted to express. But ultimately, the march continued. But what we need to realize or figure out, each person who wants to bring about change, is whether you are a reformist, whether you want to bring reformation, or you want to bring revolution. Now, you can do one or the other. Reform means you fix the system. You think that if you have these set of rules and laws, then the system is not broken completely. You can patch it here, or you can patch it there. Or are you a revolutionary, where you want to overturn the system and have a new, improved system? When you determine which side you are in, then you can have an organization for the side that you want to prevail. I'm not saying either one of them are wrong. I spent much of this weekend apologizing to people who were of different opinions than I was. You know, everybody thinks they are right about everything, right? I especially did. I'm saying you can be right, or, you know, Malcolm and Martin, when they passed, they leaned a little bit closer to what the other one was saying. Malcolm had much vitriol in his speaking about Martin Luther King. But ultimately, before he passed, he made amends with Martin Luther King because he realized that he needed him. The different avenues are going to the same destination. So I felt one thing that we also need is action items, focus items. Now you can, whether you wanted to reform things or you want to have a revolution, there are some things that I think we need to learn and articulate and set goals for. The first thing is join or start an organization. If you want to patch things up, join your organization for that. If you want to have a revolution, if you want to help these people, if you want to do this thing, have an organization. And then when you have an organization, you can move in a direction. Because when you have just a protest is from emotion. And emotions build and they dissipate. So when you are upset about something, it can't last forever. If there's a lull in the police brutality, let's say it's for 30 days, you can't stay mad for 30 days. But if you have an organization, even when your anger dissipates, the organization will still be moving ahead. Okay? So some of the action items that I listed, now you probably have more. Maybe some people in the comments put down more. This is just what I thought of right offhand. First, join or start your own organization. Have classes on human history, on African history. There's a British rapper named Akala, A-K-A-L-A. He went to formal school, but on Saturdays he went to African American studies. And this changed him dramatically. And he is a person who is an advocate for social betterment. So if you understand the human history and the African history, our history, of civilization, then we can be better to understand and deal with the problems of the future. If you don't know your history, then you don't know where you're going. So have classes, an organization that has classes just on African history or human history, and now this is me, get your DNA tested, or don't get it tested. I got my DNA tested so I can find out what countries in Africa I am from, so I can better connect with them. But you can pick whoever you want. Pick a place in Africa, point to that place, say, I want to know about that place, so you can build your connection with where you're from. I started off by saying we are Africans in America. One thing that Kwame Ture was talking about, initially he was saying black is beautiful, right? Because people had an issue with blackness and their own skin and their nose and their lips and their hair, right? But he was saying we have graduated from that because black is not an identity. Africa is where you are from. You are an African who came to America. So if you can identify with this continent that you came from, then maybe you can better move forward. All right? So find out, get some class on African studies, find out where you came from, find out about this place that created all the civilization. Get weapons, get guns. The people who are your enemies have guns. They can shoot. They know how to shoot. You need to too. I used to be a person that said people don't need all of these guns. But if my enemy, people who hate me, have guns, then we need to have guns, right? You need to learn how to shoot. We need to learn how to hunt. Have an organization on shooting. Have an organization on hunting. Have an organization on swimming. African Americans, some of them have, myself included. Now, I'm saying this list. I'm not saying that I'm 100% on all of these things. I need to do these things as well. I don't know how to swim. I need to learn how to swim, right? These are survival tactics. If you have an organization just on survival, therefore, when you have this organization, I have my organization, we can build towards a betterment or improving the system that we are in, whether we are dealing with reformation or revolution. Then there are people who I'm saying vote. And then there are other people who don't vote. We'll have an organization explaining why I shouldn't vote. And since I'm not voting, this is what I'm going to do to move forward. If I'm in the camp of I should vote, this is how we should move. And we should make sure everybody is galvanized to vote, not just for the presidential election, but governors, sheriffs, everybody, right? Have an organization for that. Now, so there are Muslims that are on this page or that are listening now, and hopefully will be listening in the future. It is sooner for Muslims to learn how to swim, learn archery, which means learn how to shoot, and to learn how to ride horseback, which we don't do now, so you need to learn how to drive. So it's sooner to learn how to shoot, to learn how to drive, and to swim. So we got to learn how to do those things. Those are survival tactics. Also have an organization who teaches people trades, African Americans, teaching them trade. Organization for food programs. We know now, since this coronavirus has hit, there are government facilities or government entities that are feeding people while school is out because people need nutrition. There are people who are friends of mine who are vegan. If you want to have an organization leading the way in being a vegan, in eating better, eating healthier, have that. Those are people, there are people who are in politics, who are going or want to get in politics. There are people who say, we can't change the system unless we are inside the system. If that's the case, then have an organization that propels African Americans from their youth to want to be in politics so they can change things. In law, I know people who are lawyers. Have an organization that pushes people to learn law. Whether they want to learn law, be lawyers, learn the laws in case they need to go to court so they can fight against discrimination, against profiling, against all of these things. Now, I remember, what's the Supreme Court Justice's name? I can't remember his name right offhand, but he had a dispute with Martin Luther King because Martin Luther King kept getting arrested. You know, he got arrested far more times than Malcolm X did. But he said you can't change the system by getting arrested. You change the system by getting inside of the law system and then changing it that way. Now, again, I'm not disputing any of those things. You can do it from both angles. You just determine which side you want to change it from and have an organization for that individual or that goal that you're trying to set. For medicine, I know people who are doctors. We need to encourage our youth to get involved in medicine, involved in law, involved in politics, involved in business classes, people who are business owners. I know business owners specifically, people who can tell you how to get good economics. If there's a book on, what's this guy's name? Claude Anderson. He has a book on black economics. If there's just a book club, period, on black liberation, you can have an organization for that. All of these organizations, as I'm saying, can converge. If you have an organization just on exercise, I got a friend of mine who is fitness first. He said, if you have children, he will let you come work there. He will let them work out for free. Now, adults can't work for free, but your children can work there for free. All right? If there's an organization on exercise and better health, better eating, saving your money is another course that we can use, another organization that we can have to build our community. If there's a community or an organization for drug use or getting off drugs, not using alcohol, not smoking cigarettes, not doing whatever that is detrimental to yourselves, we can have an organization on that, on supporting black businesses. I know the brother who started to buy black. You can go to that. I'm sorry, I'm getting riled up right now. You can go to that website. You can buy everything black. You don't have to travel anywhere. Go online if you want dish detergent, if you want toothpaste, you want toothbrush, you want anything, you can get it from there, right? We can have an organization on starting businesses. We can have an organization on mentorships. My brother Miller Shakri and his wife Juliana was going to the recreation centers, having mentoring systems, because too many of our youth are trying to be basketball players. We asked them what they wanted to do with their life. 95% of them said, I want to play basketball. I want to play football. I want to be a rapper, right? These people that want to play basketball, the man was 5'5". It's practically impossible for him to be a basketball player, but that's the goal that he is setting. Now this is me, I'm saying don't practice basketball. Don't practice football. It's a game. They are for recreation. They are for exercise. If you grow to be 6'5", then you practice basketball. So you can be a basketball player, make millions of dollars, and bring that money back to the community. You are doing no service to anyone if you don't bring it back to the community and help for our improvement. If there is an organization for returning to the workforce, I know brothers who've gotten out of prison who are entrepreneurs. One of them I see on this page right now. What he knows, what he shares, the hustles that he has to get to the legitimate hustles that he has that gets him back on his feet, we can have a program for that. For returning to society, for reading to the elderly, for giving flowers to the elderly. We can have an organization for all of those things. We can have an organization. We had annually an organization or a meeting, a conference about marriage. I've said this repeatedly. Our community is built on families. Family is a mother and a father being married, having children. So we can have an organization on healthy family life. But whatever we build of these different organizations is something you have to be willing to fight and die for or go to jail for. All right? We don't want to have people in it who are halfway in. You have to be all the way in. We always hear the story about Black Wall Street. But if there's a story about something that we build, if we build it, if someone is trying to destroy it, the story should never end with they destroyed it. And the story should end with we went out in a blaze because they tried to take it from us. All right? So that's what I'm saying. We must be vigilant. We must be willing to fight and die, go to jail, whatever it takes to get our freedom. I'm going to repeat again. Malcolm said, nobody can give it to you. You can only take it. Now, as for myself, let me calm myself down because I'm getting riled up. Just like every African-American man that I know and I can think of has had a negative encounter with the police. I've been pulled over by the police. I've had police do things that almost falsely imprison me. I've had police try to arrest me. I've had police pull me over when I did nothing wrong. I asked them, why are you pulling me over? The man said, I look too young to drive and my car is easy to steal. I told the judge that. I said, listen, if that's the case, I can get pulled over every single day. I had a case dismissed because they said I did something I didn't do, or they pull me over on false pretenses. So like everyone else, I am completely offended by seeing this man being brutalized, being killed, and onlookers and bystanders there telling him that they're killing him, and it is still happening. So again, in terms of myself, today I'm a reformer, but at any moment I am a revolutionary. I think at this moment we are too disorganized to revolt, to have a revolution. So in the meantime, that I am doing things that are to reform this place in terms of voting, in terms of health care, in terms of better wages. So these things are solutions for us staying here. But there are all alternatives. Because what I understand with revolution is that you can do nothing without power. The actions that we are generating, the action items that I have articulated, brings about power and unity. You can have unity in your organization, and then those organizations converge, and then we are able to better help the situation that we are in. And you see I have my kufi on here. My religion, my way of life, my system of being is for Al-Islam. Al-Islam is inherently revolutionary. Initially, the revolution is within yourself. And then you are enjoined, you are commanded, you are demanded, and you are to demand justice and righteousness at all times. So it is inside of me. It is what I believe that I should be changing things and wanting to change things and not staying in the system that I am in. All right? Africans that were brought to the America on the slave ships, the largest religious group was Muslims. So the people listening to me now and who will listen to me in any other time, the largest demographic were Muslims. And no one knows right now what the percentage is, but they know the largest percentage of the Africans brought here were Muslims. And we, whether you are Muslim, whether you are African spiritualist, whatever you are, we have all been oppressed in this society for the entire time that we have been here. All 400 years. There has never been a time when America was great for us. Whether we were in slavery, whether we were in Jim Crow, whether people were hanging us, whether we were having segregation in schools, or whether we are having now still police brutality, right? And white supremacists who are still fighting against us, only without the sheets. I'm listening to a song from the late 80s, early 90s of KRS-One talking about police brutality. I look at Richard Pryor talking about this in the 60s and 70s about police brutality. It's 2020 and someone got killed on the street and nothing was going to happen to him without the whole world rioting. So, the same way these freedom fighters fight for justice for the Palestinians, I'm going to need all my Muslims to fight for African Americans. We are the oppressed people. We are being oppressed right now. I don't care what country you're from. It is not only should you do it, it's your duty to. You have to. Allah said in the Quran, you have to help oppressed people. You have to. You hear what I'm saying? It's your job. I can see you right now and say, you gotta help me. You got to. That when Allah says in the Quran, fight in the cause of Allah, that is one of the premier reasons why you must fight for those who are being oppressed. Allah says in the Quran, there are two manners in which to oppose oppression, two options that we have. You can fight, because oppression is worse than death. You fight to the death, or you can leave. You can leave this place. I just want to let you know this is not just for Muslims, this is for Africans, period, that are in this diaspora. You can leave and go back to your home country, to your home continent, to the motherland. Let me tell you about my own self and my own dilemma. I've been articulating these problems that African Americans have had, or not only articulating those, all the problems that we have had with this system that we have in Western society and how it is negative, how it is harming, oppressing us. And people often ask me, if you don't like the system, why do you stay here? And my goal, my retort, my response has always been, I don't want to leave. I want to change stuff that's happening here. I'm born and raised here. My family, my ancestors created it or built it from nothing for free. Then why would I leave? But also, I don't see the end of racism during my lifetime. So I don't want to be here forever facing racism. My Arabic teacher was teaching in Sudan. And she said, maybe a month after being there, she realized the stigma, the burden of racism had been lifted from her shoulders. She wasn't experiencing racism. She wasn't thinking about racism. Now, wherever I go, and wherever I decide to go, there are problems there. But I don't want this problem of I look different from this person, so I have to be more cautious than him. I have to work 10 times harder than him. He may be doing something, or he may have somebody else doing something against me because I look different from him. So now in my older age, I have children. I have a son who is a grown man, another one who's basically grown, and another one who's a child. I don't want them to have their whole life experiencing racism. There was a scholar I was listening to. He said he moved to Nigeria when he was 4 years old. And he read about racism in the school books, but he had never experienced it until he moved back to America. And he was 15 years old. Then he experienced racism. And that he said it almost in passing, but it was so profound to me that you can go somewhere and not have this feeling. So you can fight it, or you can go somewhere away from this place. Remember, this last year was the Great Return, and everyone I saw was going to Ghana or somewhere, second of friends that go to Senegal, to Mali. You can go somewhere else. You don't have to stay here. Again, these are options that I'm saying. You can fight, or you can get away from here. What will this place be without us? Maybe they should find out. Maybe they should find out. I told my kids maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when I retire, I want to live in Africa. They were completely taken aback. But what they see on TV and what they see, and they understand the possibility that they could be killed driving down the street, it seemed to change their tune. Now, every Sunday at 1 o'clock, I try to give some tidbits on religion. What I believe in is Al-Islam. So this is not, again, just a religion, it's a way of life. The man that we follow as an example was the last prophet, was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was a leader. Now Allah says in the Quran not to make distinction between any of the other prophets, whether it's Abraham, Moses, Jesus, John the Baptist, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, whomever. I don't want to make any distinctions, but I want to say this man, Prophet Muhammad, is exemplary. I challenge anyone listening or listening in the future to find someone who is more exemplary than this man, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you like Malcolm X, if you like Martin Luther King, if you like Che Guevara, if you like Mandela, if you like Moses, if you like Jesus, if you like Marcus Garvey and the tenets that they have, if you like Patrice Lumumba or Haile Selassie or Kwame Nkrumah or David or Solomon or Thomas Sankara or whomever you like, he is all of them in one. Every aspect, the greatest aspect of each of them is personified in this man's life. He started by saying, God is one, and everything that you do in this life, you will be held accountable for. That's all he said. That was his goal. That was his message to everyone. God is one, and everything you do, you will be held accountable for. For those words, for that message, he and his family and his followers were brutalized. They were tortured. Many of them were killed. He sought protection. They starved him out. They still brutalized him. They threw things to almost make him bleed to death. Initially, they offered him riches. this man and said, listen, if you stop saying that God is one and that we're going to go to heaven, or we're going to be judged by the Creator for what we did, I'll give you all the wealth and riches that you want. He refused them. He said, you can put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand, and I will not give up this message. All right? So they tried to bribe him. He refused it. He and his followers fled to Africa, to Ethiopia for protection. His oppressors followed him to Africa to oppress him. To oppress him for simply saying, God is one, and everything that you do, you'll be held accountable for. He comes back. They persecute him more. He leaves. He runs away again to another city, builds a model community while in refuge. I want you to listen to what I'm saying, because I'm talking about Marcus Garvey. He was telling us to go back to Africa. This man left, created a model community somewhere. Where else? They were still oppressing him. They were still trying to fight him. He fought battles. He killed people. People tried to kill him. He was wounded almost mortally. This is the man that I'm talking about that is an exemplary. He did not only talk it, he fought it. He did whatever needed to be done. He fought and he won. And when he came back, he forgave the people that was left. He forgave the remaining people. But he beat his oppressors. He was the ruler of politics. He was the ruler spiritually. He was the ruler in all ways, all aspects possible. He created an organization that is thriving to this day with 2 billion people on this earth still following this organization, this example. He was Martin Luther King. He was Malcolm X. He was Marcus Garvey. He was Nelson Mandela. He was Haile Selassie. He was all of them. He beat all of them. He is still winning. He is a revolutionary. But I want to also articulate this, that John the Baptist, Yahya, was a reformist. Jesus was a reformist. He didn't bring anything new. He was trying to reform the laws that Moses brought. Moses was a revolutionary. So again, I'm saying this, that you can be a revolutionary or a reformist, whichever one you want to be. As long as we're fighting in the common goal, ultimately, I believe we'll get to the common place. Yusuf was a reformer. Luqman, though he may not have been a prophet, was a reformer. He was trying to reform the people. He and Yusuf used the talents they had to better those people. And those people and all the people I'm listing, John the Baptist, Jesus, Moses, Yusuf, Luqman, were Africans. Wherever they were Africans, just like we are Africans in America, they were Africans in Israel. So if they can do it, they can be exemplary for us, then we can do it. We can follow that mode that they had, the model that they had for organization. So all you need to decide is whether you are a reformer or a revolutionary. So reform or revolt, but organize. Peace.